episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
And also by the Pelvic Health Professionals membership site. I am so excited, Connected Yoga teachers. The Pelvic Health Professionals membership site is officially open to everyone if you are listening in real time, and it's open until September the 13th. So you have time to get in there, check it out, and see if you want to sign up. And if you're wondering, what is this? This is where healthcare professionals from all different modalities, yoga teachers to PTs to movement educators to doctors, midwives, doulas, anyone who's interested in learning more about pelvic health or how to build a business focused on the niche of pelvic health, this is where they come together and collaborate and learn together, really work together, network, have ideas. I love what I am seeing in there right now. We have this up-to-date library of resources that is building and growing all the time based on the questions that our members have. We also have an online private group, monthly Q&A calls, and we have monthly guest pelvic health experts from around the world that come and talk to us. So this past month, we just had Shelley Prosco in to talk to us. And next month, Dr. Susie Gronsky talks to us about male pelvic health. So to find out more, visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Welcome to episode 131 of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I'm a mother of three, a yoga teacher, and a trainer and consultant working for yoga teachers. This podcast was created for you so that you can connect to the information and inspiration that you need every single week so that you can feel supported, because I know that this journey as a yoga teacher can be a bumpy one. Even more so if you are running a small business, if you are an entrepreneur, and yes, if you're selling yoga, that's what you are. That road is also bumpy. I want to tell you, Connected Yoga teachers, that I have been talking with a lot of yoga teachers in the last month who make an amazing income teaching yoga. A lot of those have niched down to teach one-on-one yoga. Some of them are in the 6- and 7-figure business as a yoga teacher. I know a lot of you might cringe a little bit thinking, I'm not in this for the money. I'm not here to be a millionaire as a yoga teacher. But I want you to just imagine for a moment what our world would be like if yoga teachers dug in, made millions, and were investing millions back into their communities. Think about the choices that yoga teachers make when they spend their money. This is why I want you to thrive as a yoga teacher entrepreneur running a small business. I want to see you make an amazing profit so that you can support yourself, support your loved ones, and support your community in an amazing way. And this is why I have put this episode together, because I get asked all the time, how do I start teaching private yoga? And I go through some of the logistics, but I realize that I'm not going through enough of the nitty-gritty details. So that's what this episode today is. Before we dive into that, I want to ask you 2 questions. 1, have you left us a review yet? If you are enjoying the podcast and it is supporting you, or you love a particular episode, or you have questions about an episode, or something shifted and moved for you in your mindset or your business, we would love to hear from you. And the best way to do that is to go to our show notes. So today's show notes are at theconnectedyogateacher.com/131. and look for the button that says leave a review. This is also a great way to have a moment of fame, because I try and read one review on the podcast each and every week. This week, I'm not reading you a review because I have a lot of stuff that I want to fit in. My second question to you is, have you heard of Schedulicity yet? Schedulicity is an online software that helps you with your scheduling, and they have really built a platform that is serving yoga teachers. So if you are a yoga teacher who's in North America and you don't have a scheduling software right now, or you have one, but you're like, this really isn't serving me, please check out Schedulicity. I have been using that software since 2011, and I absolutely love the software. I tell yoga teachers about it all the time because it makes my business run smoothly. You're going to hear me talk about it a lot in today's episode at the very top when we start to get into pricing and scheduling and all of that good stuff. Another reason to really watch for what Schedulicity is doing right now is that they are giving away $5,000 a month to someone who is using their program because they want to see small businesses do well in their communities. So if you're wondering, okay, how do I get on that? I could really use $5,000 in my yoga business. Look for the hashtag ScheduLicityCares. And if you're not sure, we'll put a link to it in our show notes as well. That's hashtag ScheduLicity, Schedulicity. And let's hear our hot tip of the week from Schedulicity now.
Hello, Connected Yoga teachers. This is Shannon with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. We've talked a lot about how Schedulicity can save you tons of time as a teacher, but what about your clients? The inspiration to take a yoga class can hit anytime, anywhere. Actually, being able to put your name on the list for a class takes that whim and turns it into a commitment. So if your next student realizes they need to get limber and blissed out halfway through a bad blind date, while they're in the middle of a stressful meeting, or at 2 o'clock in the morning, all they need is 15 seconds in Schedulicity. Get booking done in a hot flash.
Alrighty, Connected Yoga teachers. As I said, I keep getting asked how I structure a private yoga session. And today's podcast is all about the details and how I do that. Right from when someone schedules their one-on-one session with me to after our session ends. I want to do my best to cover a lot of ground today. So we'll start by diving in and talking about scheduling, pricing, policies, and rent. Then I want to talk about waivers and health information, questions to ask, creating a yoga flow really on the fly and for this individual who is in front of us, space to do yoga, making sure to fit in the yoga, including Savasana, being in discussion with someone when you're working one-on-one during that yoga session, homework I send with people, and then finally the accountability and the follow-up. So let's start at the top. I think this is what I get asked about the most: scheduling, pricing, policies, and rent. So schedule. If someone wanted to schedule with you right now, when and how can they? So when on your calendar do you teach one-on-one yoga right now? And if you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't have a time yet, and then you're starting to look at your schedule, here's what I want you to do. I want you to picture a week, Monday to Friday, or maybe you love working on weekends. I don't. I like to take weekends off. Imagine your ideal week. Where in there would you ideally teach one-on-one yoga? Some of you might be tempted to say, well, I really like to teach in the morning, so I think I'll teach like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. And I just want to caution you on that. It is really helpful to chunk things up into, say, one day where you will meet people with some space in between their appointments. And that is what your main focus is that day. This is where Schedulicity really comes in. So if you want to try something out that is a scheduling software, Schedulicity is free for the first 20 bookings per month. So if you are not already seeing 20 people in a month, one-on-one, it's free to get in there, set your schedule up, have a place where people can book and pay you all at once, and the policies are in there. So cancellation policies, pricing policies, do they pay a deposit? Do they pay in full? Do they hold it with a credit card? All of those things are built into that software. So that's the first action item here is set your schedule. When do you meet one-on-one with people and how do they sign up? And once you get that in place, that first moment where you're not meeting with someone, that's the time where you have to work on your marketing and your promotion and building the business. If you don't have bookings, you need to build that or build that into your schedule somewhere else. Let's get into price now. What is your price? If I called you up and I said, I want to meet with you one-on-one, and I want you to take me through some yoga. Here is why that's really important to me to work in a private yoga setting. Maybe it's my schedule, maybe it's just my preferences, or I really want you to help me build a yoga practice. Whatever it is, I'm calling you and saying, what is your price? And I want to be able to see your price right away. That might be on your website. It might be on your Facebook page. It needs to be somewhere. It could be on a sign, on a poster, but you need to be very clear in your prices. So a lot of you ask me, what should I set my hourly rate as? You know what? I just talked to someone last week who charges $1,500 an hour. So if you think, well, I don't want to set my price too high, please remember that is all relative to what you are offering and how you can stand in your pricing. Your hourly rate, this is my take on this, and I would love it if you have other thoughts on this, but I really believe that your hourly rate as a yoga teacher should be in line with or more than the other wellness professionals around you. So take a look at the massage therapists, chiropractors, PTs, who in your area is serving people, helping people in some way in their health and wellness, and what are they charging? That said, the more experience you have, the more you niche down, the more you take trainings, the more you learn and grow. Maybe you only want to work with 3 people a week. Well, that might be a really premium offer and something that looks different. I did an episode with Tarzan. Please go back and have a listen to that. Her and I were really talking about email, but right at the top of the episode, she had some amazing insight into how to offer a premium yoga service and what she would want in a premium yoga service so that you can charge considerably more than most yoga teachers are. Please, when you're pricing, it's very easy to make the mistake of thinking, okay, well, if I make something that's double what minimum wage is, that's amazing per hour. But you need to do a lot more work than that hour that you are actually working with someone. So you need to do the marketing, the promotion, all of that stuff. We did a fantastic episode with Amber De La Garza on your buckets of your business and the buckets that you really need to focus on. And that's a great one as well. If you're like, okay, what time actually goes into running my business? You could go back and have a listen to that one as well. I'll make sure that we link to both the episode with Tarzan and the one with Amber in the show notes. I really like to have an hourly rate that I charge as a yoga teacher. Personally, that's what I do. So I've also led group private yoga classes. So basically someone approaches me and says, my family would like to come and do yoga, or my friends, or we have this, cottage that we've rented and we want a yoga teacher to come in and offer us some yoga. To me, it doesn't matter how many people are there unless it's beyond my maximum, like I want to teach to this number of people, because I have this hourly rate. The other thing that I love about that is that I don't do the legwork. If a group is booking with me, I let them take care of organizing everything, and then they can split that hour. I take care of booking the space. I make sure that I factor that in as well. I don't charge someone for the cost of the space, but I do know yoga teachers who do that. They set their rate and then they add the cost of the space on top of that. The next thing that you need to factor in is travel. Do people come to you, or do you go to their space, or do you have travel? Generally, my rule of thumb is anything over 20 minutes of driving for me. And I stopped teaching in people's homes, just so you know. It was like a one-time experience where there were 20 clocks going off, and I just thought, I'm not going to do this again. I feel like I can't make this Zen space out of this person's home. And so I only book out of yoga studios and physio offices, like something that has a more quiet and professional feel to it. So I really am fussy about the places where I teach yoga. That's just my own thing. If you want to go and teach at people's homes, that's a whole other niche. And that's really something that people love. So consider your travel time. I looked at the last booking that I did, and it's a fair amount of travel time. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to throw out a very high number for this person. right away. Yeah, that's fine. That's totally within my budget. So I was thinking, should I have charged a little bit more? You can always put it out there and then negotiate. You can also tell people if you are traveling and you're setting something up or you're organizing with a corporate event, what I do not want you to negotiate on though is I don't want you to earn less than your hourly rate that you have set. So travel, corporate events, maybe you get asked to teach for a huge group of people. You can start to increase your rate there and play around with it, but please make sure you're always making this minimum hourly rate that you have set. The other question I get asked is, do you provide mats and props? Personally, I have had many years of dragging mats and props around, and I really dislike doing that. If it's for one person, okay. If I'm doing a restorative class for 6 people, no way. I want to rent a yoga studio that has all of the props there where I just feel like I can pamper and spoil these people and I don't need to haul everything in my car. The other question I get asked is, how much time do you give yourself between appointments? This is super important. I want you to think about your boundaries when you're setting up those appointments. What if you let on to people that you had another booking right away afterwards? If you have people that hang out and chat with you, you need to work on setting your boundaries. And I know it's tough. I know you're a helping individual. That's why you became a yoga teacher. But you really need to care for your own boundaries. I've had years where my bookings would tip over into my lunch break, or I would be extending something a little bit longer for someone, and I really always try and bring it back. It's like you're taking care of that person as much as you're taking care of yourself by setting a really firm beginning and end to the session that you have together. All that said, I have set a minimum of 15 minutes between my bookings because I don't want someone to feel rushed out of the space. Say they've just finished a really nice Savasana and then they're waking up kind of groggy. I don't want them to feel like I am rushing to the next appointment. So 15 minutes gives me a lot of time. I could take a washroom break in there. I can look at the paperwork of who's coming in and sort of be ready. And let me just clarify, this 15 minutes is if there is someone at a front desk in the space where I'm renting. So that's what happens at the physio office that I work at. There's someone at the front desk. They are super organized. They're there with forms for people. They're checking them out. They're rebooking the thing. And so I have that 15 minutes to say goodbye to someone. Maybe they have one last minute question and I don't have to feel like I'm rushing them out the door. And then I am ready to start the next session right on time. Maybe even 5 minutes early if someone would like to come in and set their stuff down and go to the washroom. I'm okay. If I'm all set and ready, I can start 5 minutes early. Being on time makes my heart so happy. I love to see if I can end right on the dot. You know, here in Canada, we have CBC radio where at 1 o'clock, they make this little sound so that you can get your car clock right on time. Those kinds of things make me really happy. Okay, I'm a time nerd. That's what it is. If I didn't have office staff helping me to check someone out and book the next appointment, I would definitely allow probably 20 to 30 minutes. And if it's a group, like a group class, they take longer. You know, they're putting all their stuff away, they're chatting. Definitely a half an hour is what I do between groups. I would love to hear from you on this. What prices do you set? What questions do you have? How much time do you allow between appointments? Do you have an easy way that you transport your props and your mats? What kind of schedule do you have set up? How many people do you see one-on-one in a week? What else? What other scheduling software do you use? Especially if you're outside of North America. I know a lot of you will contact me and say, I want to use Schedulicity, but I'm not in North America. So any of that, if you want to leave that in our show notes, it's theconnectedyogateacher.com/131. Policies is the next thing that I want to talk about. As much as I love being on time, I like really clear rules. And I didn't always have this. I want to tell you that I didn't always have this. But what really helps to set these up, your cancellation policy and your payment policies, is let's go through some of the worst case scenarios. What if someone books with you, doesn't show up, and doesn't pay? You are losing money. Someone else could have booked into that time. So how much notice do you need for cancellation? What is it like if you schedule in for, let's say, a massage, and then you bail and you don't show up, and then this person has their blank spot? What do you get charged? What if you sign up for a chiropractor or a PT? What are their cancellation policies? You can look this up online, but I really would love for you to think, what's doable for you? And what I love about Schedulicity is someone can't even book with me within a certain time. Like, let's say someone wanted to book with me in 10 minutes. They can't. It doesn't even allow them because I need time to set up with my team. Okay, if I'm going to meet with someone virtually online or in person, I need time to be able to send them the things that I do before and get set up and ready and meet them at that place. I can't have 10 minutes of notice. So that's one of the policies that I have in place, as well as cancellation policy and payment policies. Basically, you have to pay to work with me first, and I found that out the hard way. Let's talk about rent now. How much are you able to pay for rent? Is this going to be a percentage or a flat fee? Will it be a percentage of what you earn, or will you be paying a flat fee? I just want to put a huge note of caution here. If you are just starting out and you are booking one-on-one and you don't have a full roster of people working with you, it is really beneficial to find a space that will rent at a percentage. That way, if you don't have a booking, you're not paying for the space. This is what I continue to do. I actually pay a percentage. I don't pay a flat rent fee at the spaces that I do, and I pay 30%. That's what I've always done. I make 70%. I pay them 30%. And I love it also if they have their front desk staff included in that. So I do have really high standards for the place that I try and rent at. And I know that it's different in every space. But if you have this set up in your mind, what would be ideal, then you know what you're looking for. So all of these things we want to have set up in our mind and on our website before someone even goes to book with us. So ask yourself, do I have all of this set in place? What do I need to set up next? If you have a question for me, tag me in our Facebook group, the Connected Yoga Teacher Group, and let me know if there's something that I haven't covered, or if all of this chat about the policies, the rent, the pricing, the schedule, if then you have a new question. So next is when we actually get someone to book with us and we're starting to do the intake. So waivers and health information. Now, just keep in mind that I'm a Canadian yoga teacher. So my insurance company is a Canadian company that I actually had here on the podcast. We can link to that episode with Beth of Lackner and McLennan. Beth was amazing at explaining this question I get over and over again. Yoga teachers will say to me, well, I was told not to have a waiver form where I ask about information. And I just want to explain where that comes from. The more you know, not just about a person, but the more training you have, the more liable you are. Beth explains that in that insurance episode, but she also talks about the importance of knowing your yoga student. So think about for a moment, if you have a pregnant person walk into your class, brand new, it's a group class, maybe they're not even visibly pregnant, and you hand them a waiver, but nowhere on there does it ask, are you pregnant? That's an important piece of information to know if someone is pregnant. There are a lot of things that we need to know about a pregnant body. What if someone had a neck injury, or what if they have a rod in their spine? We see so many students who need variations of poses because of what's going on in their body. And the more information we have from that student, the more capable we are of finding variations. And I do not mean in any way here that you need to know all of the answers. This is already getting into the next section here. But if you are looking for a waiver form, we have one. It's one of the resources that goes out to all people that sign up for our newsletter or ask me about it. It's also in our resources. If you go to theconnectedyogateacher.com and look under resources, we have all kinds of things there to support you. Another option is to have your waiver and health form online. So it might not even be a paper thing. It might be online. I love Typeform for this, and they're It's worth looking into, if people are putting their information online, how secure is it? So if you're going to do this online, make sure it's from a secure site. Okay, so your person has scheduled with you, they've paid you, they know your policies and procedures, you've paid your rent, all of these details are taken care of. They've come in, they've filled out the waiver and health information form, and now it's time for you to ask them questions. And this is the place where I think yoga teachers get really stuck. You do not need to know every single health condition, every single part of the body, every single medical and anatomy term out there. You don't need to know what's happening in this person's body. You can't. You cannot understand what this person feels like. You just need to ask questions. That's all. Questions to ask on the intake. So let's ask things like, what would you like to get out of this yoga session? What are your goals? What are your movement goals? How is your stress level? Do you have anywhere in your body where you feel pain or sensation? How are you sleeping? If someone has put something down on the intake form and you notice it, like it says knee pain, and they wrote beside it, I had knee surgery, ask them about that. When did you have your knee surgery? How is it feeling now? Is there any movement that you can't do with that knee, or do you feel like you can't do, or is there any movement that brings on pain or discomfort in that knee? There is this magical thing that happens when we do this. I did a yoga teacher training, and I want to incorporate this in both the Mama Nurture teacher training and the Yoga for Pelvic Health training that I do, because I did this as part of Mama Nurture in 2019, and it was unbelievable. What I did is I sat someone down, they were the person seeing me, and they started talking about their back pain that they had. This is real live back pain that this yoga teacher was having. Everyone else was sitting around, and I just started asking questions about the back pain. And then I turned to the people and said, what did I tell her about her back pain? Nothing. I don't even need to know what yoga is going to help her yet. I just need to ask the question so that she feels really heard and understood. So you might repeat things like, I heard you say this. I love to take notes at this time. And I tell someone I like to take notes for my own memory, but also so that we can look back and see where you were as we work through our sessions together. I've talked about scope of practice, and if you're not sure about that, go back and have a listen to the episode where I talked about the 8 limbs, because the 8 limbs is what gives me my foundation of scope of practice. So as I take my notes, I am not diagnosing someone, I'm not guessing at what they have or any of that. I'm just writing down the words that they're telling me. I also ask them if they're working with other healthcare professionals, and I really want to know that there is this solid team. If someone was telling me, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm a new mom, I'm leaking urine, I'm crying myself to sleep, I would want to make sure that that person was seeing a pelvic health PT and also some kind of a therapist. Those are out of my scope of practice, and I would be taking notes about that and then making sure that that was in place. And sometimes I even say to people, I want you to go and see a pelvic health PT like before our next visit. We'll definitely do some yoga today, but I will feel comfortable if you get the okay and we really understand what's going on. And I just want to clarify, that's a really important note. Like, I focus in pelvic health. So if someone contacts me and they say, like, I'm having this problem, I'm leaking urine, I was told by my friend that coming to your yoga class was super helpful for that, I will let them know I really want you to be working with a pelvic health PT. Now, the reality in our area is that, like, even yesterday I was checking, and it's at least 5 to 6 months before someone can have an initial consultation with a pelvic health PT in our area. So I know that some people are like, no, I want to do something right now. So I will agree to see them to a point. But I really do like to know that the whole team is involved in these decisions and knowing what is going to work for this individual. So someone asked me, if it's a specific symptom that you're trying to help with, what and how much information do you require ahead of time to help you prepare? So that's a great question. Let's say that someone contacts us and says, I heard that yoga is good to reduce my anxiety and to help my low back pain. Do we have to do a whole bunch of research into anxiety and low back pain? I would say no. Nothing required ahead of time. Now, if someone called and said, I have, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a condition let's say that someone said, I have pelvic organ prolapse. And you were like, I don't even know what that is. That's okay. You might look up what is pelvic organ prolapse so that you know, okay, what is it that this person is working with and who is the healthcare professional that could be helping them. You don't need to know every single detail about pelvic organ prolapse and what yoga helps them. You need to ask that person questions. So hopefully someone with a pelvic organ prolapse is seeing a gynecologist, also seeing a pelvic health PT. Hopefully someone with low back pain is also connecting with their healthcare team. Maybe that's a PT, maybe that's their doctor. I like to rule out that there's not something else going on in the body, like maybe in the bones. I had someone come in and tell me that they had extreme hip pain. And I asked her, please, before our next visit, can you go see your doctor and see if you can get some x-rays? I want to know that the people that should be working with this person are, so that we can all help them. But here's the thing. Here's the big piece of this. And I want to thank my friend Barb Elias for this, because she has been someone who has researched her own body and gone out and reached out to so many healthcare professionals over the years to work with her own body. And she said to me, she really has to be the one to try it out and see how it works in her body. People can make very educated decisions and suggestions and give her very educated advice on try this, do this movement, do this breath, walk this way kind of thing. But really, ultimately, she needs to take it in and see, how does this actually serve me in my body? And this person that you're working with one-on-one, you can never know what they feel like. If they have persistent pain, what does that even mean? You don't know what the level of pain for that person is. You are there to hold space, ask questions, and introduce them to the many benefits of yoga. Okay, so we started to touch on the preparation. So I create a yoga flow for someone on the fly. And many of you have asked me, okay, what are the key elements? When I work one-on-one with someone, there is definitely not some flow written out and I'm going to come to a peak pose. That doesn't exist. I really have to start from the very beginning, that very first time when we meet, and say, what are your goals? Maybe they have 5 minutes in a day. Maybe they have 30 minutes in a day where they want to do yoga. Maybe they want to feel comfortable enough to attend a group class. Maybe they want to find variations that they can use. Like, say, for example, I had someone come and see me with pelvic organ prolapse, and she wanted to find out how to do boat pose with the rest of the class and not have this pressure that she was feeling on that pelvic organ prolapse. Really important, really easy to find a variation, find a modification in that setting. That was her goal. So her yoga flow, very different from the yoga flow that I would send home with someone else. Now, here's how I teach. You set up how you teach. I love to write out what the yoga poses are that we decide on together that really fit that person. So we might try something out and they're like, oh, I hate this. Fine. Okay, that's not part of your flow. A lot of the time I will start with breath. So I might get someone to lie down on their back, bend the knees. It might be sitting up in the chair, and we talk about breath and we see. I love to kind of make some observations. How is the breath feeling? We start to dig into and talk about the breath first. Then I look back, and I might have been taking notes as this person was talking. Let's say someone said to me, I'm really feeling like I have a lot of back pain. I might jot down a few pose ideas that I'd like to try with them for the back pain. And then they say, I'm having trouble sleeping. Okay, maybe I think of a few other poses there. Okay, my hamstrings are tight. Okay, maybe that's something. The key here, though, is please do not overwhelm people. And I say this with compassion because I tend to think, well, you paid for this hour. I want to give you as much yoga as possible. Yesterday, someone came to see me, and what we did was a guided Savasana. She told me she was super overwhelmed. She told me that she didn't want to add anything to the practice that she was already doing at home. We're meeting every single month. She was just super stressed. So I said, let's go through a guided Savasana, a body scan, and then let's talk about it. How simple is that? And you might be thinking, well, how can I charge, $100, $130, $200 for this? How much do you pay for a massage and how do you feel at the end? That woman walked out this week feeling like she had a tool that she could use and feeling like she said, her own words were, that the stress had melted away. And I just want to say, when you're creating this flow, you might just pick out 4 poses and see how someone does with that. And then you might decide the next time, okay, here's another flow with 4 poses. This one you can do on this day. Maybe you want to switch it up and you want to do this another day. This is very individualized, and this takes the discussion piece. So we're going to talk about discussion here in a moment. This starts to get into the next thing, space to do yoga. I really feel, and this is completely me, that when someone books a yoga session with me, I don't do just a talking intake. I know some yoga teachers who do, and I don't discount that. I just want to tell you my thought on this and why I do it. I feel like if someone came in to me when we do the intake, and sometimes that can take a while that very first time, or sometimes someone's super chatty, and I'll give you a few tips about that in a moment. I just feel like they want to do some kind of yoga, and they definitely will appreciate over time, maybe not in that very first session, time for Shavasana, that relaxation. And Emily talked to us last week on the podcast about how that's something she does not ever skip. And I have to think about that in one-on-one, because sometimes I get so wrapped up in this moment of sharing information with this person and they're asking me questions and we're in discussion, and I want to make sure that they have this quiet time at the end for them where they can hear the messages from body and from mind and really connect to self. In this space to do yoga, if you have someone who is super chatty and it feels like they're not doing yoga, instead they're kind of like ignoring the movements and trying to have a visit with you, this does happen sometimes. And people crave connection. So just know that you're doing an important thing for them, and there's an easy way to bring them back. So if they say to you, like, I'm super stressed about my grandkids were here all weekend and they were running around and la la la, they're going on and on about this, bring it back to like, what breath practice do you think would help you then? Or maybe we could find some poses that would help you in this pocket of time. Are there any poses that we've done together in the past that you think this would be one that would really help me? So to bring them back and just remind them what they're doing there, that they're there to do yoga. And for people who are new to yoga, this might be very uncomfortable for them. They might feel weird about sitting in silence with someone else. So acknowledge all of that. Know that if they're chatting all the way through, you're starting somewhere with them. Another tip is to keep the brain busy. So you could say, okay, on the inhale, lift your hand up, lower that hand down. Next inhale, that hand comes up, lower that hand down. And if their brain's not busy enough, then ask them to do something like with their fingers, or ask them to count their breath. Get them to a place where if they start talking to you or they start thinking about their grocery list, they're going to stop doing the yoga that you gave them. Not that they're going to stop, but that they won't be able to do it. It'll keep them super focused. So keep their brain busy. So we've talked a bit about the chatty. Now I want to talk about being in discussion during a one-on-one yoga session. This is different than a group class. You might have that group class person who's like popcorning information out to you while everyone else is in their yoga. And I try and kind of, squelch that a little bit in a group class. But one-on-one, I love that discussion. So if someone tries a pose out, then I might say to them, what are you noticing? Can you tell me which variation feels better, this one or this one? Like, I want them to be giving me feedback about the yoga so that I can see how we can find another variation. Or maybe that's the one that I jot down where they're just like, oh, I love this. I feel like such a release of my shoulders, or whatever it is. Then I might be like, okay, I'm writing this one down so that you have it to remember. And this is one thing I like to tell people. I'm going to be writing, and that's a bit distracting. And this isn't something that happens, when you go to a group yoga class or you do yoga at home. But I'm writing so that I can send this home with you and that you have a note. Some people prefer to have recorded video, photos, or audio, depending on their learning ability. And I sometimes work with people with brain injuries, and in that, they might need a different medium to follow along with. So just understand that as well. So that discussion happens and we make it about what's going on in their body, not about what's going on later on in their day, or, unless it's relating to the yoga, or who knows, maybe a little memory pops up, but see if you can keep bringing them back to that moment. What if you move your knees like this? Let's try this thing to keep them really in their body and sometimes keep their brain busy. So the homework I send, I want to get into that. I love to share a 1 page of the homework. I always tell students, I'm sorry, I'll apologize in advance for my artwork. Sometimes it's horrible. I like to write down the cues that they really connected with. If they're like, oh, that's a great cue, that really made a difference, I will write that down. Also stick figures, but again, stick figures in my world are pretty crude, but maybe you're amazing at doing stick figures. I make up names for poses. Sometimes I ask people, what does this pose, if you were to name this pose, what would you name it? Because that can help them to remember what it was. If someone tells me that they are trying to build a daily yoga practice, that is their goal, we start really small. And sometimes I've even, and this gets into accountability and follow-up, I've even said to them, okay, every morning this week, I'm going to text you at 6 a.m. to see, are you up doing your yoga? And you have to be ready to do that. So this is really tipping over into accountability and follow-up. But this is also the homework that I send. It's really dependent on each individual that I work with. One little tip here is I love at the office that I'm at that we can copy that 1 page and I can put it in my notes. And that way I know what that person has been doing until the next time we meet again. I think that's super important. If you don't have the ability to do that, you might be able to take a photo on your phone, or some people have a little scanner and they'll scan it and have email it to that person, especially if you're working virtually. That's what the yoga teacher mentor that I work with, she'll scan it and then she'll send it to me after our session. Okay, so the last piece is accountability and follow-up. And here's where I feel like I could improve as a person who shares one-on-one yoga. I also know that I feel like I'm super on when that person is in session with me. They're 100% my focus. And then I like to have everything wrapped up by the time they're leaving. Now, sometimes there's photos to send them, a resource to send them, and I put a little note in their file with a circle so I can put a check mark in there, and guaranteed a lot of the time, this is where I'm lacking, I won't look at that until the next time that they're coming in. It might be 10 minutes before they're coming in. So I just want to share with you that you might put in your calendar, and this would be a great thing for me to look at and do, a time to have that follow-up. And some people want hand holding. So Tarzan talked about that in that episode that we did together. A premium offer might be an incredible amount of hand holding. Maybe people want you to send them videos through the week of the flow that they've done. So what would it look like if you had a one-on-one session with someone, and then when you were leaving, they said to you, alrighty, here's your homework page, and I will be sending you 5 emails this week with each one of these poses as a video. And that way you can really focus on one of them. You might do all of them every single day, but that's that pose to really focus on. That way I'm cueing you through it. You can remember, you can see what it feels like. And by the time we meet next week, you can ask me questions. And you might be thinking, well, how can I do a video for someone? How much would that be worth if you could get a video every single day that week via email? I feel like that's a premium offer and you would be willing to pay more for it. So consider all of the bonuses that you could put into that, and know that you could be building a library of poses so that you might send those to other students. You might use those on your YouTube channel. You might be doing something else with that content. And to that student, it's just this amazing bonus. The other thing with follow-up is, are you adding them to an email list? And then are you regularly emailing people so that they remember to rebook with you? Or maybe something else comes up in their life, like they get an email from you that talks about like 3 poses to help you to sleep. They talk to their friend later that week who's having trouble sleeping, and they're like, wait a second, I'm going to send you this email. So that follow-up can be really part of your marketing and referral program, really. Okay, connected yoga teachers, that's my summary of how I put together, and the very last piece, that accountability, what I would like to work on next. That's how I structure my one-on-one yoga classes with people. And that's what really brings me joy. And right now, as I'm recording this, that's the only way that you can work with me doing yoga, unless you came to a 4-hour workshop with me. And the point of my 4-hour workshop is, yes, to generate income, to meet more people in the realm of pelvic health, but also to generate more leads for my one-on-one work that I do. If you want to go into even more detail about this and you want to learn how I structure my specific one-on-one yoga for pelvic health, and you want to niche down into that area, make sure to check out pelvichealthprofessionals.com. As I said, the doors are open now until September 13th, 2019. If you're listening in real time, it's $25 a month or $250 for the year. And there is an amazing resource library there for you. I'm there each and every month. I'm in our group answering questions. You also have access to guest expert speakers. It's a fantastic resource if you know that you want to niche down and work with people in the realm of pelvic health, or if you know that you want to add that into your group classes or the one-on-one sessions that you're doing. Huge thank you to our team for doing all that you do to make this episode possible. And thank you, dear Connected Yoga Teacher listener. I know that you are doing the important work out in the world. You are teaching to groups, you are teaching to individuals, you are doing your yoga practice, and other people are noticing even if they aren't saying anything. So I want to know, what will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, to your yoga practice, and to your community, so that you can share the yoga that lights you up.